Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're literally stepping onto the bridge of some of the most massive machines ever built by human hands. We're plunging headfirst into the fascinating and honestly incredibly high-stakes world of maritime communication. If you've ever wondered how the chaotic, unpredictable forces of the ocean are somehow tamed by sheer human discipline, well, you're in the exact right place. I want you to just think about this for a second. How exactly do you stop a 100,000-ton steel leviathan using nothing but your voice? When a vessel of that absolute massive size is moving through the water, the sheer momentum it's staggering. A single misunderstanding, a split-second delay, or even just a garbled command could easily result in millions of dollars in damage, an environmental catastrophe, or, even worse. In this unforgiving environment, casual, everyday conversation, it simply doesn't work. The only thing standing between a safe harbor and a disastrous shipwreck is a rigid, carefully scripted language that every single sailor has to know by heart.
And that specialized language, it's known as the IMO Standard Marine Communication Phrases, or, as it's usually called, SMCP for short. You can think of the SMCP as the ultimate maritime lifeline. It strips away all the fluff, all the ambiguity, and leaves only precise, strictly standardized, actionable commands. In this explainer, we're going to take a chronological voyage through a complete anchoring operation. We'll see exactly how these highly standardized phrases are used in the real world to safely tether a giant ship to the ocean floor.
To really get how this operation works, we need to meet the two main characters of our story. On one side, we've got the bridge team. This is usually led by the captain, the pilot, or the officer of the watch. They're basically the brains of the whole operation, analyzing radars and charts, and they're the ones giving the orders. Then, hundreds of feet away, standing all the way out on the exposed bow of the ship, is the anchor party. This is typically the chief mate and the bosun, who are physically out there executing those orders on the forward forecastle. They communicate via radio in this really snappy military-style call-and-response dynamic. Absolutely every order given by the bridge must be flawlessly understood and repeated word for word by the anchor party. All right, so here is phase one, dropping anchor.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Imagine we're approaching our anchorage, right? The tension on board is definitely rising. This is where the heavy lifting begins, and the sequence kicks off with a flurry of very specific actions. First, the bridge radios down, stand by port or starboard anchor for letting go. The anchor party instantly springs into action, removing the heavy securing lashings and the chain stopper. At this exact moment, the massive anchor is being held entirely by just the friction brake of the windlass. Then comes the command, walk out the anchor. Now, the deck crew uses the windlass motor to slowly, carefully lower the anchor out of the hawse pipe until it's hanging just about 1 meter above the waterline. And why do they do this? It's to prevent those massive steel flukes from violently slamming into the ship's hull when it drops. Finally, the definitive executive command barks over the radio, let go the anchor. The crew releases that friction brake, and gravity just violently takes over, sending thousands of pounds of steel crashing down to the seabed in this massive roar of rust and spray.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the nuance in how they manage the chain once the anchor is actually falling. The bridge completely dictates the flow of this heavy metal cable. If they need more chain to reach the bottom, they'll command, pay out the cable, or veer the cable. But wait, these aren't just synonyms. Veering specifically tells the anchor party to deploy that chain under careful mechanical control using the windlass motor, rather than just letting it freefall. But if the bridge needs to pause the operation to let the ship's momentum stretch the chain out, they'll command, hold on the cable. Hearing this, the crew immediately tightens down the mechanical brake, clamping that rushing, heavy chain to a dead halt.
But the bridge can't just guess how much chain is out there in the dark water. They need absolute extreme precision. So over the radio, you'll hear a command like, put 4 shackles in the water. Now a shackle, which is sometimes called a shot, is the universal standardized unit of measurement for anchor chains. Painted marks and physical links on the chain actually tell the anchor party exactly how many shackles have passed over the deck. This allows them to report the exact length deployed straight back to the bridge. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the math we're dealing with here. 1 single shackle is equal to 15 fathoms. To put that into perspective, using measurements most of us use daily, that is roughly 90 feet, or about 27.4 meters, of incredibly heavy, thick steel chain. So when a captain orders something like 6 shackles in the water, they are literally deploying over 500 feet of heavy metal just to secure the ship. Okay, so once the desired length is deployed, the bridge will ask one of the most tension-filled questions in maritime operations. Is she brought up? This is basically the captain asking if the ship is riding stably on her anchor and has completely stopped moving. Out on the bow, the anchor party acts as the eyes and ears. They stare intensely down at the chain. They're looking for a very specific physical behavior, a heavy, groaning tension cycle as the ship pulls back against the anchor, followed by the chain suddenly slackening. That slack? That's the golden sign. It means the anchor has successfully dug its flukes deep into the seabed mud. When they see it, they grab the radio and report back, "She is brought up, sir. The ship is officially secure."
Moving on to status reports, specifically leading and growing.
But, the job doesn't end just because the anchor is in the mud. Let's see how this builds. We enter the monitoring phase, where the bridge needs constant status reports to ensure the anchor isn't dragging and that the ship remains totally safe as the tides and winds shift around. The bridge will frequently ask, "How is the cable leading?" To answer that, the anchor party relies on a highly standardized reporting matrix, basically translating physical reality into precise sailor speak. They observe two things: direction, which they call leading, and tension, which they call growing. For direction, they use a clock face or relative positions. If the chain points straight forward, it's leading ahead, or 12 o'clock. Straight down, that's up and down. For tension, they report how the chain actually feels. Is it hanging loose? Then it's slack. Is it pulling slightly? It's coming tight. Is it stretched out hard against the wind? Then it's growing tight with heavy weight. This incredibly specific language allows the captain, who obviously cannot see the chain from the bridge, to form a perfect mental model of exactly how the ship is behaving against the anchor.
All right, so that brings us to phase 2, weighing anchor. Fast forward through the night. The cargo is loaded, the storm has passed, and it's time to depart. This is the resolution phase, where the ship packs up to head back out to the open sea. The whole choreography starts again, but in reverse. The bridge orders, "Stand by for heaving up." The forward station gets ready. They turn on a high-pressure anchor wash spray, and this is absolutely crucial to blast the thick, heavy mud off the chain before it comes aboard, and they put the windlass motor in gear. Next is the command, "Heave up." The massive motor grinds to life, hauling that heavy chain back into the dark chain locker below deck. Eventually, the bridge might order to "heave short." This tells the crew to pull the chain in until it is nearly vertical, which drastically shortens the ship's leash, but crucially, it leaves the anchor still firmly holding the bottom. As the motor continues to pull, the crew watches the angle of the chain close in on the hull. When the chain points straight down into the water, the deck officer radios the bridge. Anchor is up and down. So the crucial point here is that this phrase signifies a very specific physical alignment. The chain is perfectly vertical. The massive ship has actually pulled itself forward and is now floating directly over the anchor on the seabed. They are on the absolute brink of breaking free. And then comes the real climax of the operation. As the windlass gives one final mighty heave, the anchor literally rips out of the mud. The deck officer instantly reports, "Anchor is away." This isn't just a classic nautical phrase you hear in movies. This is a critical legal milestone. The exact moment the anchor breaks free from the seabed, the ship is officially considered underway. It's no longer tethered to the earth. From this exact second forward, the bridge must be fully 100% in control of the ship's steering and engines. To wrap up the whole operation, the anchor is pulled all the way up to the surface. The crew announces anchor is clear of the water, and they do a vital visual inspection. If it looks good, they report a clear anchor. But if it's tangled in an old undersea cable, maybe a ghost net, or even its own chain, they have to report a foul anchor, which, as you can imagine, requires a really tricky and dangerous cleanup. Assuming it is clear, the final command is executed and the crew reports anchor is home and secured. The steel flukes are pulled incredibly tight into the hawse pipe, the friction brake is locked down, and heavy metal lashings are securely strapped across the chain. The vessel is now safe and totally ready to face the open ocean. We've seen how the maritime industry uses rigid, structured phrases to navigate operations where a single, misunderstood word can quite literally cause a shipwreck. This language strips away ego, assumption, and ambiguity, which leaves us with a fascinating takeaway to consider in our own lives. Whether you're running a boardroom meeting, coordinating a huge project, or just trying to navigate daily life, ambiguity is the enemy of execution. If your team's success depended on life or death clarity, how well are you really communicating?